In this nugget, we're going to introduce the NetScaler and learn that it's a physical or virtual appliance. There's multiple licensing options, and it's a security appliance that can serve as a load balancer as well as a gateway. Let's begin. I remember hearing a story about an elephant and 3 blind men. And the question was, what is this thing? And one of the blind men went up and grabbed a tusk and said, "This thing is like a..." Those 3 individuals, it was very, very different based on their experience with it. There are correlations from that elephant story to a Citrix NetScaler, because depending on who you ask, you might get different definitions of what that device does. For example, we may have a company that has a Citrix NetScaler deployed in their environment just purely for load balancing. So when customers on the internet come in, their traffic is directed to that NetScaler, who then can distribute the load across one or more servers that are cooperating together and have the same content. And if we ask that company, they would say, "Oh yeah, NetScaler is fantastic, it's a load balancer." And yet another company that may be using this load balancer as a gateway may have their own users connecting to that gateway, authenticating, and then having access through an SSL VPN to the resources at that headquarters location or at that main office. So that person might say, "Hey, yeah, the NetScaler is fantastic, perfect SSL VPN." And UDP and a few other protocols there, and everything higher than that is really the application layer. However, from an OSI reference model perspective, we're throwing in the whole kitchen sink there. And that's because the NetScaler does have the ability, based on virtually anything that's going on in the application layer as well as and on the NetScaler gateway side of the house, again, we're still talking about this one box that has both those functionalities in it. It can do the SSL VPN, it can do pre and post authentication scans to make sure that client computers, before we allow them to connect to corporate resources, to make sure that they meet certain requirements that we've defined, and that can be physical, and others are virtual. For example, the MPX is a physical appliance. And Citrix makes some uber huge systems that can handle millions of connections and gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes of throughput. There's also SDX. The SDX is also hardware, but in that hardware, you can have multiple of licensing. So in purchasing a NetScaler along with the license for the NetScaler, you'd want to make sure that you're getting the features that you need by purchasing the appropriate license. In this nugget, we've identified that the Citrix NetScaler comes in either a physical or virtual flavor. There's multiple options for licensing depending on the features we want, and it's a security and load balancing appliance. I appreciate you joining me for this nugget. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.